Chapter number 15 is about place, which is the second component of marketing mix that we are going to discuss in this topic. We're going to discuss how to manage marketing channels and supply chain. And before we do that, we obviously have to define those terms. And we're going to start with the definition of marketing channel. So, what is a marketing channel? It consists of individuals and firms involved in the process of making a product or service available for use or consumption by consumers or industrial goods. Or industrial users. So, basically, we have the manufacturers produce the product or the service, and now how do they reach out to the consumers? How do they make those products and services available to the consumers, to the ultimate consumers, whether it's the B2C type of a business or it is a B2B type of a business? How do they make their products available to either consumers or the industrial users? So that's where marketing channel plays a role. So in order to understand this better, we can see this illustration over here. The producer of consumer products and services, we're talking about a B2C kind of a business. They can sell directly to the ultimate consumer, or they can make the product available to the consumer directly without any intermediaries. They could just directly, for example, if you look at, if you go to apple.com and you order a phone from there, that's a direct, the left hand side, that's a direct marketing channel where the producer makes the product available to the consumer directly without using any intermediary. Then you have the next one, which is a retailer. So you can use, rather than going through apple.com, you can use Best Buy, for example, and then through Best Buy, you make the product available to the ultimate consumer. Third one is you can use a wholesaler before you use a retailer. You can use a wholesaler and then the ultimate consumer. And the fourth one is adding an agent to your marketing channel. So this is just a framework. This is just the basic marketing channels that are used, different marketing channels that are used by different companies. But there may be some more over there. There may be some more organizations that are a part of these channels as well. It depends from business to business how they're going to channelize their products. So for an industrial user, again, similar to B2C, B2B also has the producer selling directly to the industrial consumer, or using an industrial distributor in between, or using an agent, or using both the industrial distributor as well as an agent as an intermediary before making the product available to the industrial user. So going back to our definition of marketing channel, it consists of individuals and firms, for example, retailers, agents, wholesalers, or industrial distributors, and so on, involved in the process of making a product or service available for use or consumption by the ultimate consumer or the industrial user, depending on what type of business we are talking about. So that's marketing channel. Now, direct channel, as we already discussed, is a marketing channel where a producer and ultimate consumer deal directly with each other. So these consumers and the producer, they are directly dealing with each other without using any intermediary in between. Like we just saw, this one is a direct channel. An indirect channel is a marketing channel where the marketing intermediaries are inserted between the producer and the consumers and perform numerous channel functions. So these three on the right hand side, these reflect indirect channels where you're using some kind of intermediary, one or two or three or all different types. But wherever you are reaching or reaching the final consumer indirectly, that is using intermediaries, that's an indirect channel. Now these intermediaries may perform numerous channel functions. For example, a retailer would be there so that, and we're going to discuss this more, but so the retailer would be there so that you can reach out to many more consumers that you may not, people, all of your consumers may not go to apple.com. They might not, all of them might not uh, be comfortable with buying things online. So you have to make them available to these consumers through Apple stores, for example. That's again a direct channel. And in addition to that, you might also want to make your products available to the consumers through Best Buy, for example, an electronic store. So these consumers um, have to it has to be convenient for the consumers to buy those products, and a retailer would perform that channel function of providing convenience to the consumers. Similarly, the wholesaler and the agent, they have their own functions. An agent can perform multiple duties and have multiple roles to play depending on, or different kind of roles to play depending on the business that we're talking about. So these are all the intermediaries in the indirect channel. Now, a few terms that are used for marketing intermediaries, and we're just going to read them. Agent or broker, any intermediary with legal authority to act on behalf of the manufacturer. So an agent is somebody, for example, if you think about a real estate agent, who is that real estate agent? What is his or her job? Is to act on behalf of the builder, or and then or the seller of a house, and this guy has an uh, has a legal authority to do so. No, you cannot have anybody come in and say, I'm going to sell this particular house to you. That doesn't happen. So you have to have a broker, you have to have an agent in between who has the legal authority to act on behalf of the producer or the manufacturer. So that's the same, it's the same for marketing intermediaries. Agent or broker is any intermediary with legal authority to act on behalf of the manufacturer. Now we have a wholesaler, which is an intermediary who sells to other intermediaries. Generally, these wholesalers sell to retailers, and then and these wholesalers are generally, this term wholesalers, this is generally used in the consumer markets, that is B2C kind of a business. Next is retailer. This is any intermediary who sells to consumers. So you have you have wholesalers selling to other intermediaries, and now you have retailers who sell to the ultimate consumers. Then you have distributors, which is an imprecise term, and this generally describes intermediaries who can perform various functions, and these functions can range from selling, maintaining inventories, extending credit, etc., etc. But yeah, this is a term that can be used um, for wholesalers. If you're using it for a B2C kind of a business, you can call a wholesaler a distributor. But generally, when you say distributor, it means a B2B kind of a business. But a lot of organizations do interchangeably use it with wholesalers as well. Now you have a dealer, which is a more imprecise term, and it can mean anything. It can mean the distributor, it can mean retailer, it can mean wholesaler, it can mean anything. It's just somebody who's an intermediary. We may not be able to tell that what exactly the dealer is. Is it a wholesaler or a retailer or an agent or whatever? So those are some of the terms that we should be aware of. Now, how do intermediaries minimize transactions? So we use these intermediaries so that we can provide convenience to the consumers as well as to the organization, to the manufacturer. And this is what we're going to see, that how by just using these intermediaries, we can minimize transactions. For example, if you look at these four different electronic companies, or I think, yeah, so Kodak, Sony, Panasonic, and Hewlett Packard. All of these four companies have four different consumers, for example. because all of these consumers would like to compare these four brands or electronic brands before making a purchase, or they are at least target consumers of all of these brands because these are competing brands. So if you look at the transactions here, Kodak has to reach to Lin, it has to reach Troy, it has to reach Todd, it has to reach Diane, and Sony has to do the same. Panasonic has to do the same. HP has to do the same. So all of these companies have to make their products available to these different consumers. And we're only talking about four consumers here. We don't have just four consumers. So these companies have to reach individually all the consumers, and vice versa. All the consumers have to reach to all of these four companies if they want to buy an electronic whatever, a camera. So if it's not only convenient or inconvenient for the companies, but it's also inconvenient for the consumers. And if we use an intermediary, for example, Sears, which has gone bankrupt, but if we use an electronic retailer here, Sony, Kodak, Panasonic, and HP, all of them just have to make their product available to Sears. And then Sears can make those same products available to all the four different consumers. So this retailer acts as a one-point contact for the manufacturers as well as the consumers. And this minimizes transactions, which is convenient for both the parties. Now, four factors that affect channel choice management, that which channels should we use, and we're going to discuss all these channel choice considerations one by one. But four factors that affect these channel choice considerations are environmental factors, and we've talked about this before. We've talked about the environmental factors before. So the environmental factors can impact channel choice considerations. Consumer factors, that is, what kind of a consumer do we have, product factors, depending on what type of product are we talking about, and company factors, that is, again, the objective, the goal, the mission and vision of the company, all of those factors. And we've discussed all those four before, so we're not going to discuss that. But what all of these factors do is they all impact channel choice considerations, and that's what we're going to discuss. We're just going to discuss target market coverage, buyer requirements, and profitability one by one. So target market coverage basically means that how do we reach these consumers, these target consumers that we have. So what are the types of distribution that we have in order to reach out to our consumers, in order to make our product available to the target consumers? So the first one is intensive distribution, which is a level of distribution density whereby a firm tries to place its products and services in as many outlets as possible. So if you look at those dots over there in that picture, this is showing an intensive distribution, which means this company is making its products available in all of these outlets, as many outlets as it's possible for the organization. So that's intensive distribution, and you'll see that this kind of distribution is very common for convenience goods. For example, toothpaste, laundry detergents, soaps, shampoos, and all of those kind of products. So intensive distribution, as the name suggests, is really, an intense distribution that's making the products and services available in as many outlets as possible. Next is selective distribution, which is a level of distribution density whereby a firm selects a few retail outlets in a specific geographical area to carry its product. So if you see again, the dots represent selective distribution. That is, it's not intense. It's not that you're selecting, how much ever outlets there are, but you're only selecting a few retail outlets in a specific geographical area, obviously based on environmental factors, consumer factors, product factors, company factors. Based on all of those factors, you're only selecting a few retail outlets to who you want to carry your products. Next is exclusive distribution, and you can see those dots on the map over there. These represent exclusive distribution, where you only have one retail outlet in a specific geographical area which carries your products or services. So that's exclusive distribution. Now, the next consideration, channel design consideration, is satisfying buyer requirements. So remember, we are talking about place. That's one of the four components of marketing mix. And when we're talking about marketing, we have to remember that marketing is all about satisfying consumer needs and wants and requirements. So when we are designing our marketing channel, we have to keep in mind that we are satisfying buyer requirements. And what requirements are we talking about? We're talking about information. That is, we have to make sure that consumers are able to collect information, or we are able to provide them information about our products and services at the places they are. That's convenient for them. And the second point is convenience. That is, we want to offer these products and services to the consumers that are located at a convenient place from the buyers. So, for example, if we are manufacturing a product like a grocery product, a grocery store, we have to find a grocery store that's near the consumers so that it's convenient for the consumers to go and buy our product from there. Now, the third one, which is again related to convenience, is variety. We have to make sure that we are offering variety to the consumer. So we are talking about place, we are talking about location of where our products and services are available. So we have to make sure that we are, for example, let's say if we are a laundry detergent manufacturer, and it goes to the grocery stores. So we have to make sure that we are not only, let's say, making our product available through Walmart, but we are also making it available through Kroger, through another type of grocery store. We're also making it available using Costco and so on. So we are providing variety to the consumers so that they can choose based on their convenience or based on whatever other factors they're looking into. Based on that, we are providing variety to the consumers to choose from different locations. So that's also one of the things that we have to keep in mind. And the last one is pre or post sale services. So depending on what kind of product we are manufacturing, we might need to provide some pre-sale services. For example, for electronic items, we might want to give some pre-sale services, which means we might want to, let's say, use Best Buy and use the sales people that are there in the store to provide some information about our electronic product to the consumer, or any questions that the consumers may have. These people should be well versed with the information about the product so that they can provide those services to the consumers. And post sale services, which means after they have, and we're talking about marketing, we're talking about marketing and consumer relationship era. We are in that era right now, so we care about post sale services. So we are not going to stop at the consumer has bought our product, we are done. We don't stop there. We don't stop at purchase, but we go further, and we also want to provide post sale services. That is, if there's any problem with the product, these consumers can conveniently come to the location that they have bought the product from, to the place where they bought the product from, and these guys can take care of the post-sale services. So all of these are buyer requirements, and we need to make sure that the buyer is satisfied at the end. And that's why we need to make sure that when we are considering our channels, the channels to use, uh, we are keeping all of those points in mind. And the last point is profitability, which of course, unless and until we are making profit in the business, all of this doesn't make any sense. We are doing all of this. We say that we take care of consumers. We say that marketing is all about consumers, meeting consumers' needs and wants. But what we should not forget is that uh, our basis of business is to make profit. We have to make profit. Unless we make profit, there is no marketing, there is no marketing channels, there's no marketing, there's no business, and all of this doesn't make any sense. So we have to keep in mind profitability as well when we are considering our channel design. Next is logistics and supply chain management. So we're just going to look at, before we even discuss the definitions and everything, we're going to just look at this paint industry supply chain to try to understand what supply chain is before, so that when we reach the definitions, it's very easy for us to understand them. So you look at the top building over there. These are the suppliers, the chemicals or plastics or whatever suppliers there are. Suppliers, type of supplier that the paint industry wants. So we have these suppliers. The goods, the raw materials from those suppliers go to the paint manufacturers, right? They manufacture their paints there. And then, depending on if it is a B2C or a B2B type of a business or consumer that they have, it's going to take two directions. On the left hand side is the B2B type of a business where the paint manufacturers sell this product to the blending stations, and the blending stations further sell it to the professional paint market. And if it's a B2C, then the paint manufacturers, from paint manufacturers, all of this stuff goes to warehouses. From warehouses, it goes to the commercial branches, the retail stores or wholesalers or the others. And then finally, it goes to households or the DIY market. So all of this that we see, that is right from the suppliers to the consumers, final consumers, whether it's the ultimate consumer or the industrial consumer, all of this chain that is followed by the raw materials turning into um, finished products, turning into more finished products, and then finally reaching the consumers. This is called a supply chain. So we're going to start with the discussion of logistics before we go to supply chain. So logistics consists of, so all of this chain that we saw is supply chain, and we're going to go there in a while. But logistics consists of those activities that focus on getting the right amount. So when we were talking about the paint industry, we need to get the right amount, that is right amount of raw materials, right amount of finished goods, based on whichever step in the supply chain we are. So we need to focus on getting the right amount of the right products, of course, the raw materials for that, for the manufacturers, finished goods for the warehouses or the retailers, and so on. So right amount of the right products to the right place, again, retailers, suppliers, manufacturers, wholesalers, wherever that is, at the right time, whenever these products are required. So raw materials are needed by manufacturers at a particular time. If they miss on getting the raw materials in time, they lose a lot of money. So we have to take care of that. Then the finished goods need to be available at the retailers, the retail outlets at the right time. If we miss on putting our product on the shelves on Home Depot, let's say, then we miss on certain consumers who are going to come and look for paint products. So it's important to put to make these products available at the right time. And we have to do all of this, that is getting the right amount of the right products to the right place at the right time. We have to do all of this at the lowest possible cost, because remember profitability. Remember that we have to try to reduce our cost as much as possible. And that's where logistics comes into play. The logistics decides that, what is the right time, what is the right place, what are the right products, and what are the right amounts for us to only have a certain amount of cost, that is the lowest possible cost, for all of this to be done. So that's logistics. Now, what is a supply chain? It's a sequence of firms that perform activities required to create and deliver a good or service to consumers or industrial users. And that's what we discussed for the paint industry as well. So for example, raw materials in this picture here, to supplier, to manufacturer, to distributor, to retailer, and finally to the consumer. And you see on the arrows, there's logistics written over there, which means all of this has to be done by logistics, which is right amount of right products at right place, at right time, at the lowest possible cost. Now, we have to make sure that we are aligning our supply chain with our marketing strategy. So these two, we have to keep in mind that whatever we are doing here, the supply chain that we are talking about, this is not an individual task. This is not a task that has to be performed on its own. It has to align with marketing strategy. So in order to do that, we have to understand the customer. We also have to understand the supply chain, and then we have to harmonize the supply chain with our marketing strategy. It has to all go together. It has to all be a package. Next is customer service, and again we are discussing marketing. So customer service is important. What is it? It's the ability of logistics management to satisfy users in terms of time, dependability, communication, and convenience. So remember, logistics is all about the right, doing all the right things at lowest possible cost. So our customer service also plays a role in the logistics management, because at the end, what we want to do is we want to satisfy users, and we want to make sure that our consumers are happy and satisfied, and we can build a relationship with them. And that's why we need to think about the time, dependability, communication, and convenience of the customers. Next is the total logistics costs. So remember, logistics is about everything, starting from the raw materials to the ultimate consumers. That is, from suppliers to the ultimate consumers. So all the expenses that are associated in this whole process, all of those are total logistics costs. So these can be, for example, transportation. You're transporting raw materials from suppliers to the manufacturers, or transporting the finished goods from the manufacturers to the warehouses, and then from the warehouses to the retailers. So that transportation. And materials handling and warehousing. Where do you keep the material? You're using these warehouses to keep the material, so that associates a cost. Then you have inventory, when you're storing your raw materials at a place, or storing your finished goods at a place. That has some cost associated with it. So that's again a part of total logistics costs. Then stock outs, that is being out of inventory, when you do not have any storage, when you have to wait for let's say for the raw materials for some time. There's some cost associated with that, or you have to wait for some finished products to be available at a retail store. That has some cost associated with these, that which is called stockouts. So stockouts has some cost associated with. Then order processing, that is the processing that you do while when the consumer places an order, final consumer, or when the intermediary places processes is processing an order. So again, that has some cost associated with it. And return goods handling. So these consumers, some of the consumers are going to return the goods because of some defects or because of whatever reason. You have to handle those return goods, and that has some cost associated with it. So all of these adding together, the costs that are associated with all of these adding together are the total logistics cost. And that finishes our supply chain management and marketing strategy. If possible, if you can go on YouTube, you don't have to, but if you can and if you want to, you can go on YouTube and try to search for MDC Coca-Cola. Try to search for a video of Coca-Cola, and if you're not able to find it, just let me know, and if you're interested, let me know, and I can send you a link. I forgot to put a link over here, but only if you're interested, you can watch that video. It's a very interesting, I think 10 minutes video on YouTube, that's going to try to help you to make this whole thing, um, make you to understand this whole thing better. And that finishes our chapter. What we talked about in this chapter is the meaning of marketing channel of distribution and why these intermediaries are needed, factors affecting a company's management of a marketing channel, and we also talked about relationship between marketing channels, logistics, and supply chain management.